All right. So with the message, I thought it was important for us to actually go through. So next is the disclaimer for us to, do some, put it on YouTube. All right. So next, so yeah, Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we know we're getting towards unleavened bread, and we know that, like I said, the first day is Passover. That's coming at night, right? So we know we go from evening to evening. So right before evening, right, evening time, that's when we eat the Passover meal. And the next day, right after Passover, when the sun goes down, we start unleavened bread. All right. So it's not like it's two separate days. It's basically the end of the 14th is starts to go into the beginning of the 15th. So we eat the dinner, and then right after that, when the sun goes down, we start unleavened bread. So that's why we come back the next day. All right. But it says in Exodus, for 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. And I talked about Passover last week. That's why I'm going to unleavened bread this week. And on the seventh day there shall be a feast to Yahuwah. Unleavened bread shall be eaten throughout the 7 days. So you're supposed to eat a piece of unleavened bread. So this is telling you what to do, right? So it's not just about an event coming together and having fun. It's like he has instructions, right? There's a reason why he's doing this. And nothing leavened shall be seen among you, nor shall any leaven be seen among you in all your borders. So that means we got to clean out all the bread. All the yeast needs to come out of our house. And people are like, why are you getting all that yeast out of the house? Y'all acting crazy. Why I ain't throwing my bread? People got like that's strange. Like, why are you doing all that stuff? But then we go get a Christmas tree, a tree from outside, and we put it in the house and look at it. And like, oh, that's normal. Like, no, something wrong with that, right? So we just normalize stuff, right? So this is normal for our people. This is one of the normal things for us. Yes. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, hold on. Make sure people can hear you online. So, you got the other mic.
I just wanted to clarify when we're
just so they can hear you.
So when we're cleaning out our leaven physically, are we storing it like outside our home, or are we actually throwing it away?
I mean, it's good to be outside your home, at least. Some people throw it away. I'm not a person like we need to go to the extreme with everything.
Someone like throw the toaster away.
Right. Some people make sure every little corner is, some people do the spring cleaning, right? Like they go through the whole house and clean the whole house. Mm-hmm. But I'm the person to say, what does the scripture say, right? It says, clean up from all your borders. What is the borders? That means all Israel had to do. I don't know if they got rid of all their, surplus of grain. I don't know exactly if that's, might be, but, that's not what I at least seen. But at least make the attempt, right? So now what we hear, thankfully, we have Yahusha, right? So we're trying the best that we can. Okay. So at least let's take the first step and get it out of our cupboards in the house, at least the living domain. Okay. I know some people put it in the garage and stuff, but my thing is, go ahead and eat it all up. Unless you got a big, a whole bunch of surplus or something. But, some people give it away to the homeless. Some people do it that way too. So, yes. So hopefully that helps. Yeah. Right. All right. So, that's good. Good. So, because they even got food shelters you can go give it to, right? So, you shall tell your sons on, let me see. Yeah, verse 8. You should tell your son on that day, saying, it is because of what Yahuwah did for me when I came out of Egypt. And it shall serve as a sign to you on your hand, as a reminder on your forehead, that the law of Yahuwah may be in your mouth. For with a powerful hand, Yahuwah brought you out of Egypt. Therefore, you shall keep this ordinance as his appointed time from year to year. So he said we need to keep it as a reminder of how he brought it out of Egypt. And it's going to go a little bit more in detail why that's important, why we eat the flat bread instead of the regular bread, right? But it's a sign of what he did, right? So that's important for us to understand. And when we say unleavened bread, y'all ever heard of matzah bread? When you say unleavened bread, you're saying matzah. That's the word you're using, So, some people don't make that connection. So when you see matzah, that's what you're saying, unleavened bread. That's what you're saying. So in Hebrew, you should learn a new word. Unleavened bread, you should say matzah. Hamatzah, some people say. The unleavened bread. So, or some people say hag, matzah. But I think hag is like, I can't remember, celebrate day. I can't remember. They say that a lot, at least in Judaism I've seen. But it's a reminder of what he did for us as a people. All right. So it's also 7 days. So one thing about 7 days, we know a lot of times 7 days is a sign for cleansing, right? So it says 7 days shall they purge the altar and purify it, and they shall consecrate themselves. So a lot of times when we have we become unclean for whatever reason. Y'all has purity laws, right? He said you got to cleanse yourself. A lot of times you had to sit 7 days outside of the camp, right? You had to do something like that for 7 days. So it shows you that, now even with unleavened bread, how many days is unleavened bread? 7. So it's a sign of purity. We need to become pure, right? What does that mean when it comes pure as well? So next, so it is also considered a memorial. Now this will be a memorial to you, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, we just do the Leviticus 23 type of things, but even in the Bible, there's other memorials that was done to remember certain events. So even like Hanukkah, some people are like, oh, that's not in the Bible. Hanukkah is in the Bible many times because when they dedicated the temple, they dedicated the wall, like Nehemiah rebuilt the wall. Solomon built the temple. They dedicated it. Dedication is what? Hanukkah. Basically, all those are Hanukkah. That's what the word Hanukkah means, dedication. So even when they basically, in the story of Hanukkah that most people know of Maccabees, right, that's when they rededicated the temple. And Yahusha says, dedicate yourself unto him. My body is a temple. Your body is a temple, right? Anybody that know you not that you're a temple of Yah, right? Anyone who defiles the temple, Yah will destroy, for the temple is holy. He's talking about the body, right? He said, whatever he said even about his body, take down this temple in 3 days will rise again, right? He was talking about his body. So our body is a temple, right? It shows you that it remembers that memorial. So now with this leavened bread, it's a memorial too, right? We're remembering something. It has a significance to go back as well as a memorial. Celebrated as a feast to Yahuwah throughout all your generations. So that means they're supposed to stop way back then, or we're supposed to continually do it? No, we're supposed to start doing Easter. We just change it. Why did we just decide to just change it all of a sudden, and now we justify Easter over what y'all told us to do in the Bible? Right? Like, how does that work? Like, who did that? Nobody wants to question who changed it. Why they changed it, right? We talked about that a little bit last time, right? He said it's a permanent ordinance, right? 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. There's a cleansing, but on the first day you shall remove, which is a Shabbat. It means Shabbat, remove, cease, leaven from your houses, and for whoever eats anything leavened from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from it. That's serious, right? You're like, this is a serious thing. That person shall be cut off. On the first day, you shall have a holy assembly. So that's unleavened bread. That's why we do on the first day of unleavened bread out of obedience. That's why I said that's the really important day is the unleavened bread for us to come together. I know we have kind of, as Israelites all over, we made the Passover meal the important holy convocation. But really out of obedience, the first holy convocation, the important one of coming together is the next day after Passover. So that's why, we got to make sure we do what Yah has called us to do. And let me see, another holy assembly on the 7th day. And I don't see a lot of people doing the 7th day one, right? They just go to Passover, had fun, and it's over. They had a great time, probably did a little dance, whatever they did at Passover, but they didn't do what Yah told us to do, right? So that's what Yah wants us to do is obedience. And it's taking us a while. We're getting there, right? We got to learn and understand what all this stuff means. But that's the reason why the first day for a holy convocation is important, and the last day for the holy convocation is important. And then we have first fruit somewhere in there as well. And it all goes back to the symbolic of who? Yahusha. Right? All this goes back to Yahusha. You might can't see it right now, but it's important because it goes back to him. Because he was what? The Passover. Right? He died on the Passover as the Passover sacrifice, right? They had to hurry up and put the bodies in the ground because the sun was setting. So that shows you that it was going to be a Shabbat the next day. So it's very important that we understand what was going on during that time, right? So it says, verse 16, on the first day you shall have the holy assembly, on another day, on the 7th day, no work at all shall be done on them, except what must be eaten by every person. That alone may be prepared by you. So that means it's okay to cook for the Passover meal during that time. A lot of people get that, think you have to do it before, or, most of the time during the Shabbat, we're not supposed to cook. That kind of tells you that, right? It says, except what must be eaten on that day, on that Passover day. So regular Shabbat, she's saying, this is a little different because the regular Shabbat, you don't cook, right? But on the Passover, it's okay to cook. He says, except on this day, right? So you shall also observe the feast of unleavened bread, For on this very day I brought your host out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generation as a permanent ordinance. So this is the day, time that he took us out. So let's also remember that he took us out of bondage, right? This is a sign for that too. And he says again in his Ezekiel 20, sure. Yeah, Ezekiel 20, he says later on, he says he's going to do this again. We're going to go back to the wilderness. This is a reminder, right, that he's going to do this stuff again. He said with a mighty hand and wrath poured out, I'm going to bring you from the nations. This is exactly what it says in Ezekiel 20. He said, you're going to meet you face to face like I did with your ancestors. So this is the reason why it's important to understand this, especially for our kids and generation after that. We don't know when he's going to take us out. So if the kids like, what's going on? They don't even know what's happening, right? Unless we teach this and observe this and make sure it goes from generation to generation. So that's the reason why he said to do this as a reminder. Because everybody else going to be running around scared. Our people are like, oh, it's time, right? So like those movies, like just everybody else is walking down the street, everybody else running all scared. And just our people just like walking ready, right? Like we know what's going to happen. So in confidence. So it says, talks about the time. It says verse 18, in the first month, so that's the month of Abib, right? So this is our new year. New year doesn't start in January, in the middle of winter. We should start at New Year, right? When the moon crescent we just saw, that's just started the new year. So that's important because even the whole world used to celebrate the new year during this time. You know, even Romans and everybody else until, was it Julius Caesar? Even before him, the god Janus. Janus is a god. He means beginning, the god of beginnings and endings, opening doors. So that's when he moved the celebration, beginning of the year, to January to honor the Janus god. So when you go New Year's and resolution, that's to honor the Janus god for January. You can look that up in the encyclopedia, right? And you know their god was Mars. Now the god Mars. That's March. That's where we get the word March from. That was their high Roman gods, and they used to celebrate spring now. Now our people, we were already celebrating because Yah pulled us out of Egypt, showing that Egypt had different customs, right? To pull us out to start our time right now. So this is why it's important. We got spring, got pollen, stuff is growing. And what is it getting ready for? A harvest. So all these feasts are harvest feasts. So you can't grow anything in the middle of January, right? When it's snowing and terrible. So we got to go back to what Yah has. He has this aligned for a certain reason. So all this stuff in the Tanakh, he said that, you know, all this was written because of who? Yahusha. Psalms 40. You just read that. He said all this is written because of him. So all this stuff we were doing back then was lining up with what Yahusha was going to do for us in the future and what's to come. What he's already done for us now. But what he was going to do for our people even then was already lining up. Yah was already lining them up for it, right? We're going to see that a little bit in the scriptures. All right, so it says, in the first month, on the 14th day, and at evening, ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. So we take day 14, add 7, 21 days, right? That's 21. That's 21st, right? 14th of the month, 7 days, 21st. So we know that was the time that they actually, and we're talking about Hebrew calendar, not the Gentile calendar. All right. Verse 19, 7 days there shall be no leaven found in your houses. That's what she was asking about. For whoever eats what is leavened, that person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is an alien or a native of the land. That's interesting, right? Not just the natives, but the strangers, the aliens, supposed to partake of this. He, you know, even when Abraham had to circumcise those, not just his own children, but he said even the slaves and those in your household, everybody had to participate. So that's the reason why we talked about in Bible study, Zechariah 14, when he's going to come back. He said, everybody's going to keep the Feast of Booths, right? Everybody. If you don't, you're going to get a disease where your eyes fall out. What was the stuff? Your skin or something falls. That was terrible. And he said, you know, it said to you, the animals, all this stuff. No rain's going to come. This is after Yahushua comes back to the earth. He said, everybody's going to keep the Feast of Sukkot. So these feasts are important, right? Like I said, it goes back to him, to Yahushua. All right. And then 20, you should not eat anything leavened in all your dwellings. You should eat unleavened bread, matzah, right? So next slide. Any questions about that? Get a little bit more into some of these rules. I'm not going to go through all these individually, but I want to point out some stuff. Any questions so far? All right. Any questions online? We good? All right. So we can see where it says Deuteronomy 16:1, and it says, observe the month of Abib. Anybody know what Abib means?
Harvest, grain.
the greening of the harvest grain, right? Like the budding. That's good. So that's what Abib means, right? That's the harvest is coming to a head, right? It's basically ready to be harvested, right? And celebrate the Passover to Yahuwah, your El. For in the month of Abib, Yahuwah brought you out of Egypt by night. You shall sacrifice the Passover to Yahuwah, your El, from the flock of the herd in the place where Yahuwah chooses to establish his name. Where did he establish his name? Jerusalem. Where did Yahushua die? Oh, there's a connection, right? Jerusalem, right? So you shall not eat leavened bread with it. All right, talking about the sacrifice. Um, Let me see. So going on to verse 5, he says, you are not allowed to sacrifice the Passover in any of your towns which Yahuwah your El is giving you, but at the place where Yahuwah your El chooses to establish his name, you shall sacrifice the Passover in the evening at sunset. That's what I was talking about earlier, right? The end of the 14th day, right? That's when you do your sacrifice and you're ready to eat the Passover meal. And after that evening and the next day, that night, becomes the 15th, unleavened bread, right? So at that time, you came out of Egypt. Remember, they left Egypt when it was night, right? So they was giving all the gold. They were going out while it was still dark. All right. So going to Exodus 14:18. Oh, going back to just this is an Israelite thing. I know a lot of Christians will get online, might get a little confused about this. So this is just for our Israelite people. But a lot of times they say, hey, you can't do Passover because we have to sacrifice it in Jerusalem. That's what some people say. So do we have to be careful where we sacrifice our lambs at now when we eat lamb? Why not? Who's our sacrifice? Yahusha, right? So we got to be careful, right? To acknowledge who is our sacrifice is Yahusha, right? So he's already been sacrificed, right? And he also resurrected. He ascended on the right hand of Yah. And we can see in Revelation says there goes a slain lamb, right? In Revelations, that's before the altar. So we know that that's our sacrifice, right? So we can't get caught up like the Pharisees did of what was going to be fulfilled. We're already in the fulfillment. We already know Yahushua is the fulfillment of those things, right? He says he's got still some stuff to come because it got to come back. So everything has been fulfilled. Some people act like everything nailed on the cross, that's it. No, he just fulfilled that portion, and now he's gonna come when he come back with that wrath. He left as a suffering servant. He come back as a conquering king. He ain't playing around the second time. Like I was trying to be nice to you, but now I'm coming back. I remember you slapped me in my face. Right? Like, he's coming back with some wrath, right? So we can see in the Exodus 34:18 through 20, and it talks about the unleavened bread again, but it says the first offspring from every womb belongs to me, right? So why does the first offspring of every womb belong to Yah? When it comes to the Egypt story, Mizraim, what happened in the plagues? All the firstborn sons died. So now we're still ransom, right? We still for him. So how do we basically, pay off our debts that he saved the firstborn among our people? This is what he's talking about. The first offspring from every womb belongs to me, and all your male livestock, the first offspring from cattle and sheep. You shall redeem with a lamb the first offspring from a donkey. All right. So a lot of times, let me see. You shall redeem with a lamb the first offspring. So the donkeys were important, right? Then they didn't have cars, they didn't have no tractors. So that donkey, that mule, is important. So he said you can redeem that mule by what? Offering up what? A lamb. That's interesting, right? What did Yahushua come as? A lamb, right? Lamb of Yah, right? So it says, and if you do not redeem it, then you should break its neck. So if you don't give it that lamb, go ahead and kill that donkey because it's mine. It's supposed to die, right? So he's serious about this, right? Then he said, you should redeem all your firstborn of your sons, us, right? None shall appear before me empty-handed. So that's the reason why male is supposed to come and bring an offering on that day, right? Because he redeemed us. So we're basically showing our, dedication back to him by bringing that offering every feast day, right? So however he said you've been blessed, that's how they basically supplied for what we'll talk about, the priests, the Levites, and so forth. All right. Yes. Wait a minute. Let me get you the mic. Do you mind taking that back there to him? Thank you, sir.
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
every feast day that we assemble, we as a man, I should be bringing some type of offering do we know what is defined as a acceptable offering?
Well, how he has blessed you.
Okay.
So it's not like a certain amount.
Okay.
To the amount that, remember that this is when they
Okay.
used to bring their first. This is when they bring their tithes and stuff, their first fruit. This because
Okay.
they ain't tithe like the church, every
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
That was something more modernized. But they used to bring all their first fruit off the first animals and all. This was the
For
time they
every
sacrificed
feast
that.
day.
Yeah, I mean when it says feast day, so there's 3 major feasts. So
Okay.
like unleavened bread.
Okay.
When they say unleavened bread, that considers Passover, unleavened bread,
Okay.
and first fruit. All that's one feast day.
Okay.
Right? I mean, they consider that one feast day, but we also celebrate each individual one but it's all part of that same feast, I should say.
Okay.
So like here, he says unleavened. Before we read, it was talking about unleavened bread, but he was also including Passover.
Okay.
So sometimes it's talking about the 7 days. Sometimes it's talking about separate matzah 7 days.
Okay.
Sometimes it talks about the Passover. It's just how you look. But there's a scripture. I think I'm gonna get to it, but it talks about 3 offerings.
Okay.
So one that we bring in the spring harvest.
Okay.
Right. Spring is unleavened bread.
Unleavened bread.
Then we have Shabbat or Pentecost.
Okay.
That's another offering.
Okay.
And then we have in gathering Sukkot. During that time. That's another offering.
So those 3 feasts we should
bring
I got
something.
it. Yes, sir.
Right. That's supposed to take care of our people, right?
That's right.
So like, the stuff that we do and stuff, but also supposed to be for the Levites, for the priests, the widows, the orphans, our community, those that's in need.
Okay.
Not just supposed to be for pastor.
Yeah.
Right? Supposed to be for taking care of our community. So that's why it was so important.
Thank you so much for clearing that up.
No problem. No problem. You got a question? All right.
Thank you. So just to clarify, so is that all men or is that just for firstborn?
We say all men because
Right.
It says you shall redeem all the firstborn of your sons, then shall appear before me. Another scripture says men. So it's just I say the man of the house and the firstborn, but even the children be good. The men just to get them ready for even if it's $1.
Right.
Like my grandma used to put $1 in my hand back in church just so I could put it in the plate, right?
Okay.
Like I want my money, but she wanted to make sure I understood the importance of doing that tithe. So it's good to just making sure.
And that was going to be my other question. Is like for those of us that have sons and we're trying to teach them in the truth, like, is that a good practice to kind of like get them in the habit now of like bringing?
Oh
their
yeah,
offering?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we got we kind of we're in the awakening phase, right?
Mhm.
So hopefully their generation will always be doing it out of culture. We're the ones that got to reset stuff, right? Like we got to re-engineer and reteach and get them, we got older. Thankfully, my children woke up to it but some children might not. They're like, I've been doing Christmas all my life. I'm 18 now, so we got to show them the importance of doing it while they're still small. And if they're already older, hopefully, they'll understand the customs and start doing it with our grandchildren and so forth.
Right,
good question.
Thank y'all.
All right, so going to you can keep it just in case somebody else. Thank you, I appreciate that. So it says in Numbers, going down to Numbers, it says 28:16. It says talking about the 14th day, Yahuwah's Passover, right, and the feast, and it talks about 18 down at the bottom, verse 18. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You should do no labor's work. It's a Shabbat. Shouldn't work, right? So if you can, take off that day, right? You should present an offering by fire because they're doing burnt offerings, right? I always associate this to every time they're doing some fire offerings and burning meat, our people like to do cookouts. That's what we're known for. I don't know. That might be a connection there. No. It says, let me see where I lost my place. Let me find it. 2 bulls. All right. 2 bulls and 1 ram and 7 male lambs 1 year old, having them without defect. Did Yahushua have any defects? No. Right? For their grain offering, there's a grain offering too that had to be offered. You shall offer fine flour mixed with oil. How do you make matzah bread?
Flour mixed with oil.
Oh. Interesting, right? So we're going somewhere with this, right? 3/10 of an ephah for a bull and 2/10 for the ram, 1/10 for the ephah. We're going to skip over that. And verse 22, and 1 male goat for a sin offering to make atonement for you. Is this the Day of Atonement? But he's still making atonement. You still got to make an atonement, right? With a goat as a sin offering. Yahusha was a lamb. Goats, rams, sheep, they're all, considered in the lamb category, right? Then it says, keep on going. It says, for 7 days, the food of the offering by fire of a soothing aroma to Yahuwah, right? So this is a food, is an offering to him, right? That's what it's supposed to be during that time, at least. We ain't doing the whole 7 days on our side, but it says, present it with its what? Drink offering. So there's a drink offering. There's something about grain and flour. There's a lamb, right? So this is just make those associations, right? And then on the 7th day, verse 25, on the 7th day, you should have a holy convocation. You should do no laborious work. All right? So let's go to the next slide. Sounds familiar. While they were eating, he took some bread. What kind of bread do you think he ate? Matzah. Right? Some grain and flour and oil, right? And after blessing, he broke it and he gave it to them. He said, take it. This is my body. He was what? One the lamb? Right? He's talking about he's a sacrificial lamb. He's my body, right? And when he had taken a cup and given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all what? Drank. He had a drink offering, right? And he said to them, this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. Truly I say to you, I will never drink of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it anew in the kingdom of heaven. So, Leviticus, it says, now if anyone's had a common people sins unintentionally in doing any of the things which Yahuwah has commanded not to be done, becomes guilty. If his sins which he has committed is made known to him, right? He had to bring a goat. This is a female goat. But then it also says that once the verse 30, it says, the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and all the rest of its blood shall what? Pour out. So then he just said, this is my blood of the covenant, which is what? Poured out for many because of sin. He basically covered our sin. You can see how all this is connected, right? This is not just for chance that we're eating just unleavened bread, right? All that connects back to him being the sacrifice. That's what he's talking about with this blood being poured out while we're doing it as memorial and remembrance to him, just like we're doing Passover as a memorial to when he pulled us out of Egypt. When he pulled us out of Egypt, it's like pulling us out of sin, right? You can see all these connections, right? So he did this thousands of years, was already a setup for when Yahushua was going to come. And people sometimes can't make that connection, right? So it's not just, the fact that he just wanted to eat some bread and drink some, drink the drink, but, he had a reason for it, all right? So that's the reason why in the next slide, communion, right? It's important to understand the reason for this because it says, this cup, we talked a little bit about this last Shabbat, this cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often you drink it in remembrance of me, the memorial, right? You proclaim Yahuwah's death until he comes. So that's what you're doing. Every time we have the meal, right, we drink, and this is remembering him and what he did for us, right? That should be a holy time, something of reverence. Therefore, whoever eats the bread and drinks the cup of Yahuwah in an unworthy manner shall be guilty of the body and the blood of Yahusha, I should say. But a man must examine himself. So this is the time when we take that. It's like back in the day, they had to be circumcised before they ate that meal, right? Everybody, the strangers, whoever wanted to eat the meal had to be circumcised. That's where we get proselytes from. Even the Gentiles who got circumcised, they could eat of the meal. The Bible says that, right? But now, this is a circumcision of your heart. So, even though we're there as Israelites, and we get ready to drink that cup, whatever it's the little one or whatever we got to drink, this is talking about what he did and how he poured out his blood for us as individuals. So this is serious. It's not just a thing at the church to give it to the kids and everybody just, go through a routine. This is for us to reflect on ourselves like this is a day. If he came back that day, would you basically go be with him? Or would you be the one that's left out in the wilderness? Right? So this is why this is serious. All this is going back to what was done from thousands and thousands of years that Yah was preparing us to receive Yahusha. And now that we have received them, now we have to make sure we reverence him until he comes back. All right? So next, so this is important too. So everybody says, these things are, Christians say this is Old Testament. This stuff is done away with. So First Corinthians, who wrote Corinthians? Paul. Let's see what Paul said, right? Your boasting is not good. Do you not know a little leaven leavens the whole lump of dough? So he's using leaven as sin. A little leaven leavens everything. Clean out the old leaven so that you may be a new lump, just as you're in fact unleavened. For Messiah, our Passover, also has been sacrificed. He put it all together right there, right? Talks about the unleavened bread, cleaning out your house. That's what he's talking about. The old leaven, get the old leaven out, right? That's why it's a symbolic of us getting the sin out of our life at this time to reflect upon where we are with him. Right? It's not just an exercise. So it's not just a fun thing to do, which is not fun at all. You be sweating. That's always, I'm dreading that day all the time. So I like to eat, but especially bread and stuff. But, it says, for Messiah, our Passover, right? He's a Passover lamb. He's sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the feast. He said, this is Paul. You let us celebrate the feast. Right? Not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness. He's making that bread, that leaven, the leaven that's in the bread, talking about the sin, right? The sin in our life. We shouldn't celebrate this with sin in our life. Malice, wickedness. We need to get stuff together and get our life together, right? It's like a sign. Whenever we have these feast days, it's like we need to really be thinking about where our relationship is with him. It says 3 feast days too, right? So every time we got to think, should be thinking about it every day, but especially during these times, right? So it says, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, right? Take out all the sin to live a holy life, sincerity and truth. All right. Any questions about that? Hopefully you can see those connections. Everybody good? All right. So let me see what time it is. I got enough time. Okay, I got some time. All right. So, thought I see some hands up. So next slide. So in Numbers. So this is some of the stuff that, kind of get away from the Israelite standpoint, right? I want to talk about how some of our Israelite brothers talk. And, some people are confused about some of these things. So I just want to make sure I present those. So I'm going to kind of go through these. I'm not going to read line by line. But Numbers 9, 4 through 14. That's important for you to take note too. But it says, so Moses told the sons of Israel to observe the Passover. They observed the Passover in the first month on the 14th day of the month at twilight. Where at? In the wilderness. Were they in Israel? So I thought people say you're supposed to be in Israel. Everybody was in Israel. That time they won't. If you read the book of Tobit, right, they were doing feast days outside of Israel, right? So this is before a memorial for us to remember. This is what our culture is. This is why he put this in us, so we can continue to remember who we are and his relationship to us, because he's coming back. So wherever we are, he wants us to remember this, right? So this is even before the promised land, and they are already doing Passover. All right. So he also says, if you miss the Passover, people can miss the Passover. Why would you miss the Passover? It says, going down to verse 10, it says, if any of you or of your generation becomes unclean because of a dead person or is on a distant journey, he may, however, observe the Passover to Yahuwah in the second month. So if something happens, you miss Passover, you can do it the second month, right? It's not, y'all is merciful. Even in the Tanakh, they were like, Old Testament God is evil. Like, well, he's giving you a reset for some people, right? That's important to understand. They were doing it. Some people did it on the second month because they weren't prepared. So even in our life, if something happens and you're not ready, this is supposed to be a home meal. So that don't feel like you got to force yourself to do it Passover and drink from that cup, unworthy, right? So make sure you got some time to get it back together in the second month. But it says they shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. So really it's a simple meal, right? It's just meat, the greens, bitter herb, whatever that is. Isn't collard green a bitter herb? Spinach? Mustard greens. There we go. Mustard greens. And, so with stuff that we already eat. And then you also have the bread, unleavened bread, right? Simple. And they say they should leave none of it until the morning, nor break a bone of it. So we know even Yahusha, not a bone in his body was broken. According to all the statute of the Passover, they shall observe it. And he says, but the man who is clean and is not on a journey and yet it neglects to observe the Passover. So it's like, there's no excuses. If you're able to do it, you should do it. Why wouldn't you do it? Right? The same thing we talk about even when it comes to baptism. People are like, you want to be baptized. Why wouldn't you do it? If he says to do it, do it. Why not do it? Right? He says, have communion, do it. Even me, I say feet washing. He say, do it, do it. People are like, oh, I don't know how to do that. But it's a sign. He say, do it. The Lord, right? He said to do it. Right? Like, why wouldn't we do it? That goes back to like our own desires, what we want to do. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble, right? He said, you should have one statute both for the alien and for the native. So he's saying to everybody, there's no like, I'm outside, I'm a Gentile, I'm not an Israelite. Because even in, what is it, Isaiah, I won't get myself in trouble, 52, I think it's Isaiah 52, when he says that even the eunuch, right, that they will be given a great place. Really, when it comes to the eunuchs, they were basically, and they basically were, what do you call it? Hurt, damaged, right? So usually those people had to be in the outer court, right? The Gentiles had to be in the outer court too. But he, in that scripture, in the Tanakh, way before even Yahushua got here, he said, my house will be a prayer for all people, right? He said, even the strangers, I want to say the word that was used in some version, long as they keep the Sabbath and keep the ordinances, that he's going to bring them in a different way. So that's what the scripture says, right? So even those that was among them, the aliens, so there's no separate or different way to come through him, right? You have to come through, Yahushua was an Israelite. You have to come through Yahushua the Israelite. So he's going to be doing Israelite customs. Right? So we can't be doing Christmas and all this other stuff and think those are the same. They're not equivalent at all. I mean, to a point where the Roman Catholic Church was killing people, trying to force us to get away from those customs. In Spain and Portugal, not just in the way back in the day. I'm talking about 700 AD. They were killing our people right before the slave trade because we weren't giving up these days, right? And now we've been assimilated so much that we're like, that's not needed. We want to do the European things, and we at least got to say you're African. West African. None of those days, all those days, January, February, March, Mars, right? April got a date and some kind of god. Maya, goddess, right? June, Juno, that's a goddess. July, Julius Caesar, right? Like none of these things have to do with our people. August, Augustus, king, European king, right? Like none of this stuff got to do with our people, and we so hard trying to hold on to it. And Warren been talking a lot about the frats and sororities, how so many people connected to Greeks. Like nothing to do with African culture, nothing to do with no Bible culture, but they were so hard wanting to hold on to that. And he's doing a good job waking up our people about that too. Oh, wait a minute. Take the mic. You don't mind. Oh, over there. Oh, okay. Hey, just wait. Y'all sets us up, right? Ain't no way getting around it, right? So any questions about that, about this one? This is before the promised land. So we know we can do it outside of Israel because they did the first one outside of Israel and they did other ones outside as well. So next question. All right. And then this is just amazing to me because Hezekiah was like 1,300 years after King David, right? 1,300 years after King David. And he had to reinstitute the Passover and unleavened bread because they had stopped doing it. So even in Israel, our own people got to a point that was so filled with sin that they got misled because they weren't doing what Yah told us to do. Even the king was supposed to write the law, the Torah, by his own hand. And we'll see in the next scripture, but they lost it. How do you lose the scripture? You living in Israel and all this stuff, everybody like, when I get back to the land, I'm gonna do this. Then we in the land. But that goes back to what Moses said. He said, you're going to get kicked out, right? Deuteronomy 30, that's why I tell people. He said, before they even got to the land, or the Song of Moses, as we read, right? You already got a witness. So you're going to go there, you're going to mess up. So this song is a witness to you. So they were messing up, But Hezekiah, a righteous king, he sent a letter to Israel and Judah. Remember, Israel and Judah were divided. They were actually fighting at times, right? But he sent the letter to all the people of Israel and Judah, and to Ephraim, Manasseh, and he said, come on to the house. Let's celebrate. Let's get back on one accord, right? So that's Yah always trying to put the two sticks together, right? To be one stick in his hand. That's going to Ezekiel 37, I believe, right? He's trying to put the two sticks together. And Hezekiah even had this desire for the people to come back together, and they laughed. Some of them laughed at him. But he wrote this letter. It says, do not be like your fathers and your brothers who were unfaithful to Yahuwah of their fathers, so that he made them a horror, as you see. Now do not stiffen your neck like your fathers, but yield to Yahuwah and enter his sanctuary, which he has consecrated forever, and serve Yahuwah your El, that his burning anger may turn away. So it's showing his wrath going on, even now, right? It's wrath. The day of wrath is supposed to be revealed, right? For if you return to Yahuwah, your brothers and your sons will find compassion before those who led them captive and return to this land. So the northern land was already taken captive by the Assyrians, right? And he's like, if you do right, he will bring us back together. Do right. Now we in scattered again. If we do right, he's going to do the compassion to bring us back. So that's the reason why this is important. You know, if you say, if you be obedient and you recognize me, you be holy, Kodesh, set apart, right? If you worship me, right, doing what's right, holy, then I'm going to have compassion on you and do some great things. But if not, you're going to be in my wrath, right? So we can see why we continue as a people, keep on going through stuff. You know, every time we talk about, what's that, Tulsa City? I'm saying that right? Black Wall Street, right? Yeah. Happened there. We start doing well, broke down. Wilmington, North Carolina. That's right. Doing well, there's a big massacre. First time they ever had a coup that was never overturned. You got the parks named after the people who did the coup to this day. Still got, it's just crazy. Durham. What's that? Haiti, right? Community. Same thing. What they slowly getting, you read about what happened to that community. It's terrible. All around us is just stuff. Every time we get 2 steps forward, we got knocked back 18 steps, right? So we can see that it's not really the people's, not this is no smarter than us, right? It's amazing to me that we just came from civil rights in 1960. How many years was that away from today? That's like 60 years. We got doctors, lawyers, 60 years of coming back out of slavery and still being treated terrible and systemic racism and stuff that's still going on today, and we still being successful. Oh, you got one? You got it back there? Okay. Oh, you got it? Oh, I thought you had it. You don't mind taking mine, do you? Okay, thank you.
I just want to share something to touch that. I felt like that was important that you just brought up. Black Wall Street, Wilmington, times that we tried to separate and do our own thing, not really, necessarily trying to sit at the oppressor's table, but trying to build a table of our own. And you still see how their hands rose up against us. I do believe that part of our trouble has been that we have mixed these pagan practices into the things that we were trying to do to liberate our people. And that's been the reason why many of those things have been successful, because underneath the surface of that are these secular organizations that build altars to false gods. So on the surface, it seems like these are benevolent organizations that are trying to do things for the people. But the trick is to give you an adjacent organization to work in tandem with the kingdom of the Most High. And the truth is, we don't need any additional auxiliary organizations to do the work of the people on behalf of the Most High. We just need the Most High. So I feel like if our black leadership would understand that we have to come away from these worldly organizations and just come back to the Most High and be in alignment with Him, in obedience with His word, by following the culture, heritage, and history and customs that He gave us, and not adopting those of another man.
That's crazy. Like, why would we adopt those and think we're going to be successful? Oh, you can leave it back there because that would be helpful. I don't know if pass around be easy. But it's just amazing to me, right? Like, why would we change from, even like church people, right? Like, you talk about the Bible all day and then you go to the pagan European stuff. Like, it's one thing for them to do it, and they stop after college. We do it for the rest of our life, right? That's just crazy to me. That's just crazy. But it shows you that even as this part of it, we wanted to break into what they had instead of accepting what we have through the Bible. And now it's amazing that churches have, first gentlemen's and frats and sororities and all that's accepted. But as soon as you say something about Israel, like, oh, No,
Yeah.
that's I'm like, what?
You in a cult.
You in a cult? I'm like, what? What? We try to live out the Bible? No, can't do that, right? When it comes to rappers and stuff, right? First thing they try to do some kind of Illuminati, try to get involved in something crazy. Like, why would that be our avenue for success? And why are they putting on our people more than other people?
That's exactly
Like they
right.
know that that's our major weapon
But
is our
Brother
connection to
Jashir,
him.
if I should thank you, one, Brother Jashir, there are a lot of rappers
Oh
that
yeah,
know the way.
oh yeah. Some of them don't do that.
They know the way.
Yeah,
They
most
know our
definitely.
way. That's
Most
what I'm talking
definitely.
about. Like
Oh yeah.
for real. And then you have to listen to the lyrics to their songs. And I am sorry, baby. I'm sad to say that I'm not sad about it. I have listened to songs and I hear the lyrics and I get back to service, Bible study, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
I
What
always
did
go
he
back.
say?
Oh, they'll be saying something about the Bible. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, on everything I love, there's a rapper. He's one of my favorites. His daddy was an Israelite, but his mama won't. Nasir Jones. Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
You do know
Holy man. We got a rapper right here. We're completing support, right? Got rappers right here among us.
Yeah.
It's amazing how when we got he gave us all kind of different genres of music, right? We got the holy rap, right? You got holy gospel, you got all these things, but we still go to the evil parts of it, right? Like it's not the method, it's what it's the words. Like why would we still gravitate and say, oh, those are the better rappers? But it's because they just got the money, they got the TV, they got the shine, so everybody wants to gravitate to them. But when it comes to people that's trying to do what's right and sounds good, why don't we support them, right? And shouldn't we be supporting those people that's in our midst that's promoting us to do what's right? Because that music can talk louder than a sermon can, right? Somebody said a couple of words in rap, boy, that's stuck in your mind. You come back about 3 months from now, you're like, what's Unleavened Bread? All that stuff Jay Shit was talking. He said talk so much, I can't remember it, all right? Like, but somebody put it in a song, they were like, oh, I remember that. What's that song? By KRS-One? Shem was a black man. I remember that when I was like, what was it, 10 or something? I still remember that. I didn't know what it meant. So now I was like, ding, he's talking about us being Israelites. Oh, got it.
About the music and everything, and how some of it is actively devil worship, evil, and they incorporate it in the music. And I just remember, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and back when I was in high school and stuff, and 3-6 Mafia was all over, and parallel to all the killing that was going on, amongst our people too, young brothers, even still to this day, and how they have to listen to that music as they're preparing to go do, some evil, but and they don't even know that the rappers, you may not even be involved in that, but it's your mindset, you're constantly beating that in your head, and then they come back and tell you we're actually before in the studio doing rituals and sacrifices and doing all kinds of things, and then putting it on a track, and everybody's bopping their head to it. They don't even know that
to their soul.
Right.
Yeah, that's so important.
It's just so careful.
There's a movie called They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll. I used to show it to the kids back in the day, teenagers. It's amazing. Back in the day with James Brown and Elvis, they were drinking blood and stuff back then. It'll blow your mind.
But I'm the type of person when I listen to music, I like break it down. So, but if you do listen to 3-6 Mafia, it's like, how they say, a subtle voice. You'll hear it, but you got to break it down. You got to take your time to listen to it. And it's like sacrifice or kill. I mean, but it was something they would say, but you have to really listen to it. But if you just listen to the song, you would never catch it. But once you research it and they give you all the information about who they are, what they do, and all the things they do, like, you really have to take the time to break it down.
Right, yeah.
And my husband taught me that.
Oh, that's good.
Chris said that. He said, oh, okay. Chris said, baby, you got to listen to the words of the song. What is it? You up in here talking about that's your song, but listen to it, though. Because you would not know from the chorus what he talking about. Like, now, we don't have enough time, but there are baby, stop. I'm going to be good. There are songs, stop, Warren. There are songs that are not as bad as the world make it seem. but I don't listen to it like that. But I'm just saying.
Go ahead and confess. Let's go. No,
Oh.
let's not. Let's leave that alone. We don't know confession.
We're gonna leave it
today.
alone. We're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna leave it alone. But yeah, but I
bring
agree.
this together.
But I am agreeing with what you said, especially when
Yeah.
you're talking about the drinking blood stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I agree with everything you're saying. I'm
Yeah,
not.
and some of it's not like the heavy rap stuff, right? Everybody want to talk about,
You better hear it.
what's my man name, Easy E's and stuff like that, right? But even some of the John Lennon's and stuff like some of the stuff that they listen to the words and what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Beatles and stuff, listen to what they're saying. They had a song Sgt. Pepper. Sgt. Pepper was talking about Lester Crowley, one of the worst Satanists in the world. And the Beatles were talking about it. So it's like we missed a lot of stuff. That's why I said that they sold their soul for rock and roll. It'll blow your mind with some of the stuff that was going on then that we can see basically happening to this day. So read the words, and even like my cootie said here about 3-6 Mafia, it took me forever. I never put 3, 6, 6 together. I never put that together until I got older, but I never thought about that. You know, Biggie Smalls I think had something to do with that group. So it shows you
No, he
did.
didn't.
Oh, you did?
No, sir.
Oh, okay.
No,
But
sir.
I don't know about that much of that stuff.
But Brother J. Shear, I do want to say that man that you're speaking about in that group, he is a pastor now, isn't he, baby? Project Pat. Yeah, he's a minister.
Oh, okay.
He found y'all, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know.
So after seeing all that evil, but you can see even in some people's songs, you can tell that they're tormented by something sometimes, right? You know, it's just interesting. I saw what was a T.I. or something talking about he was trying to go to church, and they were talking about offering, and he just got all upset all over again. But like, why was he there to start with? Shows you there was something pulling him there, like something he's dealing with. A lot of times you see some of these singers and entertainers crying and sound like they were getting tormented. And you was like, what's that all about? They just break up on Facebook and you see them crying. Like, you got all that money, you got everything you want. What's going on behind the scenes, right? So we know that there's a desire, at least from our people, to know Yah, right? So, but the past for feast for unleavened bread, we know that Hezekiah did it. And then look, when they basically now are trying to rededicate themselves, it says, when did they actually do it? Let me see if I can find it, if I save some time. I might be thinking about the next one. But they basically celebrated for 7 days, and then they also celebrated for another 7 days. That's how much dedicated they were. They did 14 days. They didn't have to do the next day. They really want to be cleansed. And how did they end up being cleansed, right? What were they doing, right? Even it says that the Levites were ashamed of themselves and consecrated themselves. The priests were ashamed, right? So it was like a whole repenting of the whole nation of Israel. And many in the assembly who had not consecrated themselves, therefore the Levites were over the slaughter of the Passover because the priests weren't ready. So that just sounds like where we are right now, right? The preachers, the ministers, they're not ready, right? They're like, once our people start repenting, they're going to have to repent for a lot of stuff. It says that the blood will be on their hands. But hopefully they will repent as well, just like I had to, right? So I'm not just calling out other people. I woke up and I was like, oh, I got to change what I'm doing. I got to, minister what the gospel, the Bible says, and not what, theology or tradition say, right? So we can see it says like nothing like this in Jerusalem since the day of Solomon. So that's what I was talking about. From Solomon all the way to Hezekiah was like what I just Googled. It says 1,300 years. Nothing like that was celebrated all the way up until King Hezekiah. Showing you how we lost, how we were, why the Northern Drive got taken away to start with, right? Because they started doing the pagan practices and things like that. All right, so next. And then the crazy thing about this is that Hezekiah's grandson, Josiah, had to do it again. He had to reinstitute it again. His grandson, from Hezekiah to his grandson, they got lost again. So that's why it's so important for every generation to understand why this is important. That's why the generation after generation need to be a part of that, right? And that's why it says a free will offering. That's what I was talking about. This offers also contribute a free will offering to the people, the priests, and the Levites. So it's important that the Levites, the priests, were taken care of, right? And it also talks about boil the holy things in the pot. Sometimes people say, Pastor, you can't boil something in the pot. So somebody got to explain what did they boil in the holy pot then for Passover. So there's some stuff that people you hear say, but some of it is Judaism. There's certain things that Judaism doing. I've seen in our culture. Even I was like, wait a minute, where did this come from? I went back and looked because even in Judaism, the Ashkenazi and the Sephardic people, they do different things. So when you say, don't do this, is it in the Bible? You say not doing this? Or is this some kind of tradition? Like the cedar plate and stuff. That's not in the Bible. That's Judaism. But people, even in our community, they hook on that cedar plate. They're like, well, I'm asking, like, where you get the cedar plate? Where we get the bone from? What's the egg? I don't see nothing about no egg. Where's the egg? But, dip the herbs in the little water, salty water. Where is that at? But if you go to the Jewish Kabbalah, Shabbat thing, they'll tell you what it's about. They'll tell you, So sometimes they'll make them just throw something in there, but it's like, that ain't what the Bible say. So, that's them. I always say that's them. They celebrate them. Christians do what we do. We got to do what we were supposed to do, right? He said, go back to the ancient ways. And that's what he's talking about before the Second Temple period. Second Temple period is so important for our people to understand because that's when they brought all that stuff from Babylon and brought it back to our culture. So you had a question? Comment, all right.
I was just gonna say that, like, it's just so plain and simple. Like, y'all makes it very plain, the specific of what we should do and what we should not be doing. And so I kind of start looking at like, hey, if I gotta sit and be saying, oh, do we can't 9 times out of 10, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Because it's so, like you said, so much stuff out here. So just
easy to get confused.
Like, it's just so simple. Like, he gives specific instructions. So all we have to do is if we go back and lean on the word and look at the word, then that just tells us right then that clarifies what we need to do. So
a lot of times people get caught up in doing too much, right? Like he tries to say, do the simple stuff. And we get caught up in trying to do too much, and then we're doing stuff that he said not do. And that basically, how our people up, we want to add something else. We want to add something else. And then we be so far away from the original intent that we lose track. So even in the obedience, what he's telling us to do is important. Just the simple stuff. Like, hey, why can't we just do this for this one day? But people are like, oh no, can we have a sheet cake? Like, sheet cake got living in it. Okay, we want to add something else. Like, why we keep on like just eat the bitter herbs, the meat, and go home and do what you want to do. And then unleavened bread the next day, then we can eat, a little bit of stuff. Okay, still up there, but still. And then you have the last day. That's supposed to be the time of when you're getting ready to, get out of it. So it's just strange how our people are, but that just shows you how we are. That's why that song of witness is against our people all the way since then. But then when Josiah did it, right, it says that Passover, let me see, I'm gonna read the whole sentence. Thus, the sons of Israel who were present celebrated the Passover at that time and the Feast of Unleavened Bread in 7 days. And there had not been celebrated a Passover like it in Israel since the days of Samuel the prophet. So Hezekiah went all the way back to Solomon. His grandson went all the way back to Samuel before the kingdom was established, the first temple period. So it just shows you, well, even Hezekiah was first temple, but still, it just shows you how far back, our people have been seeing living in Israel, right? So now, like, what does that mean for us now trying to be dedicated? So next slide, we know when they were taken to Babylon, they had to come back, right? So we know during the time of Nehemiah and Ezra, they were coming back from Persia and Babylon, Mordecai and all that, Purim. They're now coming back to Israel. And it says the exiles observed the Passover for the 14th of the first month, right? And it says, for the priests and the Levites have purified themselves together. All of them were pure. Then they slaughtered the Passover lamb for all the exiles, both their brothers and the priests, and for themselves, and the sons of Israel who returned from exile. Aren't we coming out of exile? Aren't we in exile now? We trying to talk. So this is the awakening, right? He's waking us up. Just like they had to go back and reset some stuff, we now got to get back in the mind frame. So it's not like a new thing, right? They're basically trying to now coming out of all this pagan. Mordecai, that's a pagan name, right? Queen Esther is the pagan name. They're coming out of all this paganism and trying to go back to reestablish themselves as Israel. They still had a memory of who they were, but now we're coming to the memory, right? That's that Deuteronomy 30. You remember all the blessings and curses, right, that Yah had set before them during the time of the Bible, before Moses. So that's what we remember in Deuteronomy, right? And then he says we'll return our hearts, and our children as well will return their hearts, right? So it's not just us. Our children got to return as well. Then he says he's going to take those curses and flop it back on those who oppressed us. So those Deuteronomy 28 curses that's on us right now, or we're coming out of, he said he's going to flip it to put it back on them and bless us like we were initially were supposed to be receiving of those blessings. But then he says they observe the Passover, the unleavened bread for 7 days. Verse 21, the sons of Israel who returned from exile and all those who had separated themselves from the impurity of the nations. So they had to come out of the impurity, the paganism of the other nations, right? When they were coming out. And it wasn't all of them. It says those who had Kodesh, right? Holy, separated themselves, made themselves holy from the impurity of the other nation. Like your brother was saying, all that stuff that we've engaged in now, we got to come out of that to go back to what Yah has called us to be. And this is like the first fruit, right? The unleavened bread, the feast days. And that we know that even Yahusha, right? He died as a Passover, but he was raised as a first fruit, right? Day of first fruit. So we know that's the reason why first fruit is important, because we not only, back in the day, it was a time that, Yahusha told us, Yah told us during the harvest to make sure on the first Shabbat, during the unleavened bread, to bring your offerings to him and wave the first offering as a first fruit to him, right? To Yah. So we can see, in Leviticus 23:11, he says, he shall wave the sheaf before Yahuwah for you to be accepted on the day after the Shabbat. The first priest shall wave it. Now on the day when you wave the sheaf, you shall offer a male lamb, 1 year old without defect. Yahusha, right? It's very symbolic. For a burnt offering to Yahuwah. In Matthew 28, when after Yahusha had risen from the dead, it says, now after the Sabbath. So when is first fruit? The day after the Sabbath, right? The first day after the Sabbath. When day he raised? The day after the Sabbath, just like first fruit. He was the first fruit, right? It says, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, Mary, he was during the dark, right, night. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to look at the grave. So we know that was the day of first fruit. John 20:17, Yahusha said to her, stop clinging to me, for I have not ascended to the Father, but go to my brethren and say to them, I ascend to my Father and your Father, and my Yah and your Yah. So he's saying that he was that first fruit. You're not even supposed to, that first offering wasn't supposed to be touched. It was supposed to be waved before the priest, right? So he was that first fruit when he raised. He's like, woman, not yet. For the Father, I'm that first fruit, right? But in First Corinthians, that's Paul, right? But now Messiah has been raised from the dead. The what?
First fruits.
The first fruits of those who are asleep. So all these years in Christian church, how do you understand that scripture if you don't understand first fruit? How do you understand that? You can't. You just think, oh, first fruit, right? It means something, right? So it's very important. So, no, yes.
What does that mean when it says
first fruits?
First fruits on first fruit of those who are asleep.
Yes, so he was the first of the resurrected.
Oh, okay.
So he was the first person to resurrect. And it goes into other scripture because that we said we are his first fruit. So that's important when it goes to Shabbat, right? Pentecost, right? Because that's another first fruit. Yeah. And that's when the disciples woke up to who they are in the Messiah. So that's the exact same day he rose as a first fruit on first fruits. Now that's the part that just amazes me. On that day, he rose as a first fruit. And then those 7 weeks and 1 day after, his disciples rose as the first fruit of him. First fruit of the resurrection. So it's just amazing how Yah has this timing for thousands of years already set into play, and we're missing it, right? So next, we just let you know, Limba, it's the reason why we work with the Limba, because they are known to be the Levites, right? They come from Levitical blood. Next, they come from the sinner people, the people that actually came back during the time of the exile. That's who they say they are, right there in the Bible, right? So next, their DNA basically connects to the priest of what they say is the DNA for the priest. That's their DNA compared to what they say are the priest's DNA. Doesn't that look almost 100% exactly the same, right? And then in South Africa and Zimbabwe, yes.
How did they know that? What's their baseline to say these?
Well, what they did is went all around the world and go ahead, ask the question.
Oh, sorry. I was asking, how did they know that is the priest bloodline, the baseline to say that that's the DNA of the priest?
So they went around the world and they saw people like, it's even with Ashkenazi or Mizrahi or, these are different types of Jews. People don't realize there's more than just, the Ashkenazi Jews. There's the Mizrahi Jews. There's like from North Africa and Iran and places. There's the Ethiopian Jews, right? The black ones that actually got flown on the plane back to Israel. There's the, I'm missing some, Yemenite Jews, right? So they go around and find out which ones are like the priestly class. Some people, if you hear the name Cohen, Cohen, I remember people saying Cohen. I was like, Cohen? That's my first name. I was like, what they say? I was like, oh no, that's something different. but Cohen supposed to mean you were a priest or you came, but even like some people change the names to that. So, but they went around to all these different people. They took their DNA and said, what's the common thing among them all? So they came up with this haplotype, this DNA, and that's what they call. So a lot of the, they say at least our elder that passed away last year, he said that, when he was interviewed, he said like the Ashkenazi, they came up like 8% of this DNA. I think he said Jews came up to like 15 or something percent. And then when they got tested, the Limba, they came up to 60%. So they said, oh, what these black? No, we can't have that. I think Duke University did the test right here. Nobody knows about that. But here in North Carolina, nobody talks about Limba or nothing. Yeah, I told you. Yeah, it was on PBS and everything. Public Broadcasting Channel. But so they took the test again. Israel, somebody else, Europe, somebody came up, did the test again. It went from 60 to like 70%. They were like, oh, we'll try to make it go down. It's going up. Wow. They took another test with 80%, and they wouldn't even get their results back. So even our elder passed without getting his results back, his final results. But they found the analysis of the test, and they know that. So now they're trying to change it. Say, oh no, those tests are not right. Let's throw that at scratch. Let's throw that away. But it's important to know that next, this is my DNA. What's the closest DNA? Limba. That's my closest tribe of people around the world is the Limba tribe. So most of yours is the same. That's why I want y'all to do the DNA test, right? It shows you what yours are. Even before I even said Bantu, Yoruba, Medinka. These are West African tribes. Why does Limba come up as the first one? And that's in Zimbabwe or South Africa. Actually, they got some in Congo and Angola, and they were the ones that got taken away as slaves. A lot of them got taken away in the slave trade. So next, so this is the reason why we do a first fruit offering. So with that offering that Art was talking about that we do 3 times a year, we take that money and we want to send it to our Limba. He's passed, but the son is still going. We're going to interview him and continue that relationship with our family. I call her Mother Betty, his wife. She's just a blessing, praying over us and stuff. She does a lot of stuff for the community there. So we want to keep that going, right? Because that helps us to come back. And that's what Elder, he was talking about, right? He was talking about in gathering the whole time. He's like, we're at the beginning of the gathering. Get ready, right? So that was his whole life mission, is to bring us together where other people haven't even reached out from other tribes, right? Like I talk about all these other tribes. But his mission was to bring us back together. So in Deuteronomy, it says, be careful that you do not forsake the Levite. So if we want to go back to what y'all saying to do, we know the Levites are, and they are struggling to do their Passover and stuff, and especially the ones that's Messianic, the ones that believe in the Messiah, some of them actually changed because, they were given the option to take some of the money to take on the religion of Judaism. So some of them say, okay, they took the money, now they do the Judaism. But he said he won't do it. He stood tall, even to the end. He wasn't, anything, even like the little kipper hat he got on there, he found out that was wrong. Then the last one, you start seeing him, more of the rap like he got. That's what he started wearing, right? Because he said, no, that's not a tradition. He threw that off. He said, we're going to do something different. You see him with the breastplate, right? So it was only just the Buba tribe that had this DNA, and they were the priestly tribe of the Limba. So not only, it's just like they didn't go around, the priestly tribe of the Limba are the ones that actually have the cornine DNA of the priest. And they are our closest relatives. So even I've taken a test in Israel, something, questionable. But it says that I'm connected to the Levites in Judah. So very interesting. All right, so next. So that's the reason why I wanted to show that. That's where we're going to money. But going back to cleaning out the leaven. So this is where I'm getting ready to close. But it says clean out the old leaven, right? So this is what we're supposed to be doing. So next slide. In James, that's what I read at the beginning, so I'm not going to go through the whole slide. This is the scripture I read at the very beginning, right? James is a bondservant of Yah, right? So he believes in Yah. Oh, my slide messed up. Okay. Well, you can see the man, he's in peace. So let's go to Bible and James for now. Let's go to James 1. We just keep on going. My wife might help. If not. Well, Malimba, the new guy down there in South Africa, Malimba, be wearing the beret and going against Trump and stuff. Okay. He actually met at the Limba conference. He said he's a Limba. He's an Israelite. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, they actually invited me to go down there, so maybe y'all willing, I'll be able to go there. But maybe there's one that says new. There's another thing because you might have other ones that messed up. So I put out one that says new on the share drive. See if you can find that. But in your Bibles, in James 1, right? I read this already. But it says, right, he's a bondservant of Yah. He believes in Yahushua HaMashiach, right? And then it says, who's he writing to? 12 tribes dispersed abroad. That's what he's writing to, the 12 tribes. Now, he's a believer in Messiah. This is the Hadashah, the New Testament, and he's writing to the 12 tribes as an Israelite. And he's like, this is my message to you. So when you read James, you got to read in that context, right? He's writing to Israelites who's trying to get them to believe in the Messiah or already believe in the Messiah. So that's wonderful. Like, what? You can see why those early fathers, Christian fathers, they try to take this book out. And they Christian, like Martin Luther, try to take this book out. Marcion, the one that created the concept of the Old Testament and New Testament, he said the Old Testament God was evil. We don't need to mess with him. We need to have the New Testament God. That's where that concept comes from. You know, it's Gnostic, actually, concept. He was trying to kick out all these books like Hebrews and James. He's like, let's do away with that. It's about, we're the new Israelites, spiritual. And that's where that concept starts. You start hearing it bubble up from, right? But you can see where it says to the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad, greetings. But then it talks about our faith, right? So this is that, like, how do I, as an individual, clean out the leaven? It's one thing to talk about us as a congregation, but now, since we are many people, every individual makes up Israelites, makes up the congregation. So if you're not taking out that, we as a whole can't take it out. So that's when y'all start speaking to us as individuals. So even James is now saying, consider it joy, all brethren, when you enter various trials. All of us going through testing, right? Knowing that to end, he says in verse 4, and let endurance have its perfect rest, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. But if any lack wisdom, ask them. Are we asking y'all? Like in the areas that we're struggling, we all have issues, right? We all have issues where we're trying to battle against. Are we asking y'all for deliverance in that? Right? And that's the big thing, right? Until a person wants to lose weight, until they have a made up mind that I want to lose weight, they're going to keep on struggling with that, right? But when they say, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to do my best, right? Now their mind is on losing weight. They basically have a made up heart first that I'm going to do it, right? So even when it comes to our sins, do we have that made up mind saying, I'm going to do this, right? Or do we still kind of like, there's a gray area. I can kind of half do it. I can get away with this. I still want to do this, even though I know it's a little wrong, but that's the way that the devil creeps in, right? To pull us back out there. But when we have a made up mind saying, I'm going to do this, it's a lot better, right? That's how we got to start up for. And we had to ask Yah, like, I need your help, Yah, right? And he said, have faith without doubting. Do we doubt that Yah does Yah have the power to pull us out of anything? Anything. He has the power. But we got to have a made up mind saying, hey, you're going to pull me out. Might be a journey, but like I always tell people, that test is going to turn out to what? Testimony, right? So that whole journey is our testimony because somebody else is going to hear that and might help pull them out. But we got to go through it ourselves as well. So the first thing is that we got to ask God to help us not to doubt him that he can do it. And then, because if not, he's kind of tossed by the wind. We're kind of like, double-minded. That's what he said. We're unstable. I want to not do this, or I want to do this, because sin is not just not doing evil. Sin is disobedience. So if we're not even doing the things God has called us to do, that's sin. That's why, that's why I'm trying to preach about the feast days and stuff, right? He's telling us to do these things, right? People are like, I don't know if I need to do that. I don't know if we got the time. But back in the day, our heart was like, Christmas. I ain't missing Christmas. I'm going to be time with the food, family. I'm going to be there, right? I'm going to skip work, get fired. I'm going to be at that table, right? But now with the feast day, like, I don't know about that day. I might get double pay shift, or what I'm saying? Like, other stuff start going to our mind, right? But we got to have a made up mind to do the things, not be double minded. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people are concerned about the Israelites. Because I hear you saying, you the Israelites, but now you're cursing people out, right? You're treating people mean. He said, get rid of the malice, right? That's in you as part of but you're acting malice, you're acting angry, like you're not showing the fruits of the Spirit. So that's the thing that pushes people away. So we got to people love and showing, glory to Yah. He said, make sure we live our conduct among the Gentiles so they can't talk negative about us when the day of wrath comes, right? That Yah's going to have justice on those people that go against his people and go against him, because Yahushua was Israelite, right? So we can see that it says, verse 9, but the brother of humble circumstances is to glory in his high position, and the rich man glory in his humiliation. So, everybody should be on the same path, right? Like, if somebody come in here, and I can't stand the big name stuff, right? Like, everybody's important. Everybody's important. I mean, I even tell people, like when it comes to me, I love y'all, but I'd rather y'all, Chris, he helps me out. Call other people, right? Y'all need to start relationship with other people, right? That's important. That's why we have the men's thing, right? For everybody to come together, meet each other. I'm not a woman, but it'd be good if I had a woman. I can't help y'all on that side. If I can put it together and pay for it, we pay for it. That's all I can do. Somebody got to stand up and do it, right? But it's important that we have these relationships with one another, because, everybody's important. You don't know what each person's doing. I know I can't do it all. My wife said I should be a counselor. I'm always on the phone all day talking to people, not just us here, but people in others. I'm like, all day. So I'm like, wow, I need, some ops to stand up so we can basically build with other people and help, because there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of pain, a lot of issues going out there, and people need other people. Yeah. And there's only, it says the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. We need more laborers out there to help with our people, right? And it's going to get us to come out of our comfort zone sometimes, even myself. Yeah, I'm not a person that like coming and speaking in front of people. Like my wife said, no, you like to talk. But I really don't. Even when I was a manager, I got one of those tests, and they were like, you're kind of that person that will step up when needed, but you don't like to be in front of everybody. I said, that's exactly me. I don't like to do it. But when I don't see it, I'll step up and do it. But, but we got to come out of our comfort zone sometimes as well. And it's important that it says, like flower and grass, he will pass away, talking about the rich man, right? For the sun rises with a scorching wind and withers the grass, its flowers falls away, and beauty of its appearance is destroyed. So where does that come from? We talked about this a little bit last Shabbat, if you heard us also online. We talked, next slide, talking about the greatness of Yah, right? And we're talking about Isaiah 40, right? When it says, comfort my people, talking about the iniquity being removed. But in verse 5, we talked about this. Then the glory of Yahuwah will be revealed, and all flesh will see it together. For the mouth of Yahuwah has spoken. A voice said, call out. Then he answered, what shall I call out? All flesh is grass, and all this loveliness is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, when the breath of Yahuwah blows on it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of Yahuwah stands forever. So we talked about this last week. So next, we talked about 1 Peter says the same thing. All the flesh is like grass, and all this glory is like the flower of grass. The grass withers, the flowers fall. So this is the stuff that he continues to repeat. So going to the next slide in 1 Peter, this is all from last week. Talked about, for he was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but has appeared in these last times for your sake. Talking about Yahushua, who through him are believers in Yah and raised him from the dead. And then you go all the way down to the end. All flesh is like grass, and all this glory like the flowers of grass. The grass withers, the flower falls off, but the word of Yahuwah endures forever. So this he told us to do, this feast day forever, perpetually, from generation to generation. He has a purpose with all this. This is his plan, right? We might die. We're like the flower that falls, we will die, and the next generation will die, and everybody's going to die. But the thing about it is that his word, the purpose is going to endure forever. So there's going to be a resurrection, right? That's the reason for salvation. He said when he comes back, he's going to come back with many horses, right? White horses, other people on horses. Who's the other people with horses, right? Coming from heaven. Those people that passed on, elder, whoever that's living holy and righteous is going to come back and believe in the Messiah. That's the important piece as well. So if we go into the next slide, and James, going back to James, and just for the sake of time, I just want to make sure we make that connection. We're going to stop and eat something here. But then it says, let no one say when he is tempted, we talked about that, I am being tempted of Yah, for Yah cannot tempt by evil, right? And he himself does not tempt anyone, but each one is tempted by when he is carried around and tasted by his own lust. So that's the reason why we're messing up, right? What is our own lust? We got to make sure we understand ourselves to make sure we are able to defend our lust. Those things are going to get us in trouble, right? And it's a mindset. We got to make sure we, call it out for what it is, and then we'll be able to tackle that thing by trusting and asking Yah, right? So And then just for time, it says 18, in the exercise of his will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, so that we would be a kind of what?
First fruit.
What? First fruits? Where that come from? First fruits. We should talk about first fruits among his creatures, right? This you know, my beloved brethren, but everyone must be quick to hear and slow to speak and slow to anger, right? A lot of times some people got hot heads, right? Especially our people, right? We ready to tell somebody off, and that's showing you, that's pulling our people away. It's not what y'all had designed us to do. It's what's been placed in there, you know. A lot of times people, oh, that's a black woman. Right, they already know there's gonna be some attitude, right? Snapping their hands and twist. They automatic. That's been put on our people. Why? It doesn't say that's our people, but that's known now. Like, oh, don't mess with her. We know what's gonna happen, right? But it says, therefore, putting aside, verse 21, putting aside all filthiness, all that remains wicked of wicked, and humility, receive the word and plant it, which is able to save your soul. I tell people, the Bible even says, write the word on doorposts, right? Write all around, put it up, right? To be reminded. We need to be listening to the word, right? If you're doing wrong, you hear that word, kind of like that. Remember me and RP, like back in the day, working with children and teenagers, you put that Revelation movie up, you get a reset. Kids out there, right? They see that movie, like, oh, I'm trying to do right, at least for a week or something. I don't know how long it lasts, but you know, but when you hear that word, right, it's all about going to hell and stuff, you're gonna be like, you're not gonna just get a seared conscience. And that's why people can't stand it. You know, even people outside reading the Bible sometimes, they be trying to throw them in jail. Oh, that's not right. And like over in Britain, Europe and stuff, they're throwing people in jail just by reading out loud the Bible, you know, because they don't want to deal with that consciousness, right? So we got to make sure when we're dealing with something, keep that word before us. And, you know, if you're struggling with certain things, go and read some Revelation every now and then. Read some Isaiah about the last days and wrath of Yah. You be like, okay, I'm going to try to, what's the 3-step program? You know, I'm trying to get on that program, right? So we got, if not, we'll get a seared conscience. That's what makes us a reprobate. So we got something. Let's take it. Keep the word before you. Read the word. That's important. I tell people to read the 1-year Bible. Our old pastor used to have us reading a 1-year Bible. Sometimes we read it two different ones in a year. So we got to keep that word before us. And, you know, like I said, keep scripture stuff around us, you know. And my wife, I remember she used to put the fruits of the spirit when she had to deal with them people on the phone, those customer service. She got the fruit of the spirit right there. She got to think about those things, right? Like, I don't blame them. That's some mean people. So we got to keep that stuff before us as a reminder. And that's what fringes are supposed to be, right? Supposed to remember the commandments. That's the reason why we wear fringes. Like, you got to remember who you are. And when you get into these different places, like, hey, you know, I'm an Israelite, and he's telling me to keep commandments. So I can't be like everybody. I got to be separate and holy and righteous. So that's the reason why we're supposed to wear it. It's not supposed to be like a thing like, oh, look at my fringes, right? Like, that's how people doing it now. Like, but then when it comes to like other stuff, traditional stuff, we'll wear it, right? Dashikis and stuff. Nobody had a problem. Well, back in the day, they used to have a problem with dashikis. It's crazy. If you look up the history of that, you know, all that stuff was going on back in the day. But, you know, that's a sign of who we are, right? So it's important to show, you know, our connection even back to him as well. But anyway, let me see, for time's sake. It says 23, for if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his natural face in a mirror. You see the woman looking at the mirror. For if anyone is a hearer, verse 24, for once he has looked at himself and gone away, he has immediately forgotten what kind of person he was, right? So we got to make sure we understand what's on the inside, not just on the outside, right? So on the outside, she's a beautiful woman, right? So on the inside, she's suffering, right? So we got to really look at ourselves in the face and say, who are we really, right? If we see who we are as an Israelite, that's one thing, that's a heritage thing. But what about on the inside? Are we known to be a separate, holy people? Right? And do we walk away? Do we forget what we look like when we go into the community and go with other people? Do we not forget who we are? Right? So it should be who we are no matter where we go. We got to make sure that who we are on the inside is important, that we connect back to Yah, even in our struggle, even in the things that we are trying to do for, you know, holiness and righteousness. So in 25, but one who looks intently at the perfect law, the law of liberty, and abides by it, not having become forgetful hearer, but an effective doer. We need to be doing things, not just knowing. We got to carry it out. That's what this is all about. Feast days and all this, about carrying out who we are. And it says, what is pure religion? It says, if anyone thinks himself to be religious and not bridle his tongue, but deceive his own heart, this man's religion is worthless. So if we're not living the life and doing what Yah has called it, all this is nothing. All this Israelite stuff is a fad. It's just a phase. But if we actually understand our relationship back to him, we know that it's true, right? I asked y'all, is y'all real? Is what he said is going to be fulfilled? Do you believe it? So this is why we live and why we're doing it. It's not just a fad. It's like, oh, I'm an Israelite. I'm important now. All right, go kiss my boot, lick my, heel, all that stuff. I can't believe those people do it. That's amazing to me. But, guess there's conviction there too. But verse 27, pure and undefiled in the sight of our Yah and the Father is to visit the orphans and the widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained by the world. So that's why we do the offering, right? That's why we're helping people that's in need and reaching out to them, the schools and all that stuff. And then James 2 kind of goes into the next part, and that's what I was talking about earlier. But it says, my brethren, do not hold your faith in our glorious Yahushua HaMashiach with an attitude of personal favoritism. We can't have any favoritism. You see the rich person coming through the door, everybody's gotten pictures and attention, but the poor family, nobody studying, right? So when we are called out to be the people of Yah, when people come in that door, we should be all trying to be like, hey, what's going on? I'm glad you woke up. We need to, that's the type of attitude. I think that's what Yah is doing for us. He got to wake us up. Right? And then when we wake up, we got to want to wake up others, not just for us to be hermits or, what was that movie, Lord of the Rings, and I think it was the elves that went to Middle Earth, said, hey, peace out. Y'all got to do this battle without us, right? We're not like that, right? We're not going to go be a hermit in the cave and be like, we know we're just going to wait until Yah comes and he's going to destroy everything and I'll be okay. That's not the mindset. He said we got to be just like Yahushua. He said he poured out his blood for our sake. Paul said, I'm going to be a pour out drink offering, right? I'm going to pour myself out. Are we pouring ourselves out for Yah? Or are we just like sitting in the cup and getting spoiled? When water stays stale too long, what happens? It starts getting mold and start being bad, right? Is that who we are? Or are we basically being used by Yah? He's pouring into our cup and we're pouring into others. All right? So when it comes to favor, right, we're not supposed to have favor. There's no big people, no small people. Everybody is used by Yah in the capacity that he wants to use us, right? So even with here today, the last is bringing food, right? People coming, putting up chairs. All the stuff that Yah is doing, trying to bring, she has stuff for the youth and everybody trying to find their place of what Yah is trying to do, right? So that's all important. But it says in verse 8, it says, if, however, you are fulfilling the royal law, remember we talked about the different laws before? The royal law, what's the royal law? According to scriptures, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Those are the two greatest commandments, right? Love Yah and love your neighbor as yourself. You are doing well. But if you show partiality, you are committing sin and are convicted by the law as a transgressor. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at one point, he has become guilty of all, right? So now it's talking about the morals of the law, right? So we doing all these feast days, we're doing all this stuff, we're dressing with fringes, and we're not being nice and doing the thing. We're not still going to hell. Sorry. We got to do all the things that Yah has called us to do. And like Yahushua said, be even greater than what it says. Unless you surpass the righteousness of the Pharisees, right, and the scribes, you will not enter heaven. So he says, put it in your heart. If you hate your brother, it said, thou shalt not kill. But if you hate your brother, it's the same thing, right? Same type of stuff. So next slide, and this is the last slide. So it says, what use is it, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but has no works, can that faith save him? Right? If a brother or sister is without clothing and need of daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace and be warm and be filled, and yet you do not give them what is necessary for their body, what use is that? Even so, faith, if it has no work, is dead being by itself. But some may say, well, we say, we have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that Yah is one, you do well. The demons also believe. The demons believe in the Bible. I mean, they going to heaven, right? So you can believe all you want in the Bible, but if you're not living it, if you're not living it out and carrying it out and doing what Yah has called us out, what's the purpose, right? That's what makes us sanctified. That's what makes us change, not just knowing it, but actually doing it, right? So it's just like Abraham, when he brought up his son to actually sacrifice him, it was an act of faith. He already been called out. He didn't have why did he have to do that? Because y'all told him to do it. He was willing to do it. And when y'all saw that, that's what makes us. That's when he was given the promise, right? About his descendants. Because he was obedient. So same thing when it comes to our children and our people that surround us. When we're blessed, we carry out the things y'all has called us to do. That's a blessing to our next generation, those that surround us as well, right? So that we know that when we do evil, with bald and masonry and Greek stuff, that could be a curse to our children. I feel like my family kind of going through that because we were having a lot of Masons and stuff all through my family, high Masons, I found out. And I had some stuff going through as a child, seeing stuff and crazy, all that stuff was going on, black shadows and stuff, tormented. Then even my son was talking about it too. And I'm like, oh, when he was small, he used to say stuff. So, thankfully, Yah has been able to bless us to, to pray, to protect our children, hopefully from generation to generation, to make sure that doesn't continue to happen. But we can see how it's easy to bring a curse on your family. And for some people, it's hard to bring the blessings for their family because they don't want to do right, right? It's easy to live in sin and do right, have two girlfriends and a wife and all that, and then chip off the whole block, right? The next generation. But who's going to be the one that's going to stand up and stop that? And that's where we are right now as a people. We had all that slavery and all that stuff put on us, and all that. One slave had to breed all these other women, and now that's put in our mind. And now, how do we stop that? Right? Who's going to stop it? Is it us? This is what the awakening is about, right? We're going to stop it from the next generation, and y'all's going to be able to now put it in their hearts. So when they're doing this, it's going to be natural for them. They don't have to come and ask a question. They already know what unleavened bread is, right? We are because of what we're doing before them. All right. So next slide. Any questions? That's actually the free will. So remember about this as part of the offering. This is where we're going to try to do, and they're really excited about it, doing it, getting the money because they didn't have the money to do Passover. And the Levites, I'm like, how the Levites don't do Passover, not have the money to do? And it says that we're supposed to be taking care of them so they can bring us and teach us and stuff, right? It's like, but we know who they are, but we ignore them. And people, sometimes people would put them on their little YouTube show. So, I know the Levites. But how much are they taking care of them? They're just using them for hosts and stuff, but not trying to do the things that God has called us to do. So I'm different, I guess. I want to make sure they get stuff. And a lot of people came together when Elder passed away. And, people from all around were trying to give money to help them. And all the money got there. Just want to let everybody know, all the money, I don't touch none of the money. So all the money got there. And it was a blessing to them, right? It helped them with a lot of expenses because Mother Betty, her husband's gone. It's a big deal for them over there. Here we got insurance policies and all that. I don't know what they got over there, right? We take for granted some of the stuff that we have, unemployment and stuff. People over there don't got unemployment. People talk about going to Africa. You better be ready. Make sure you got the right mind. You go up there and lose your job in Africa, you on the street. So, any questions? I know it went over a lot of content, but that's why we go over every year, just in case, we find time. Even I'm learning, right? I forget about stuff. So, everybody good? All right, let us stand. We have prayer and we eat. Now, when y'all ask after service, find out where's the east so we'll know next time. Dear Yah, we just thank you for this time. We ask you to just continue to bless us and correct us where needed. We ask you to help us to understand more about your word and your ways and help us to not just get caught up on the cultural part, but also the spiritual side where you want to correct us and direct us in the way that you want us to go. Help us those words to give the words life and the customs to give life, and how we should honor your son Yahusha for what all he's done and all that you prepared him to do. We can see his presence from the beginning of our people when they left Egypt all the way into now, and also in his return. We ask you to help us to draw closer to you through your Ruach HaKodesh, and we just see how your plan is being fulfilled. And help us to be a part of it by helping us to do what you called us to do, to be a light to the world and to the nations, where even Gentiles will be attracted to who you are, what you have done through your son, and through the conduct that we have decided to live through your word by being the holy people, the set apart, the Kodesh people you called us to be. Ask you to bless our family, bless all those that are sick, that's going through, even in our own presence with Cousin Hazel. We ask you to even help her through the surgery, help her to come out on the other side, to help her give us a good testimony. We just trusted you. We ask you to be with us in all our personal needs, our nieces and mothers and all those people that surround us that's suffering, and help them to know and to hear your voice even in the time of their distress. And we ask you to just to help us to be a light to them and to show them who you are through our actions and not just through our words. And we ask you to bless everyone that's here and those who couldn't make it. Bless them in their lives and help us to go through this test and to get to the testimony so we can bring it back to edify each other as well. Help us to build relationships with one another and to show your royal law where we love our neighbor as ourselves. And we ask you to bless this food we're about to receive for the nourishment of our body. Thank you for everyone that's able to provide the food and also the assembling together on today. Everyone who put a hand in, bless them. And even we ask you to bless us until we're able to meet again. In Yahushua HaMashiach's name we do pray. Hallelujah. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah.